After World War II, the greatest generation returned home to find an America that was forever changed. The 1950s saw the Supreme Allied Commander become leader of the free world. And we started seeing life through a new device, not just sounds, but now also pictures flying through the air.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Kangaroo.
Ricky, this is it.
This is it.
Today, January 14th, 1952. We are in NBC's World Communications Center in the heart of Radio City, New York. And here is Dave Garrowin.
By 1955, Iowa's largest cities each had multiple television stations. There's no record of any Iowa broadcasters covering the conflict in Korea. Many radio stations were busy putting their new TV stations on the air at the time, and the television technology was not advanced enough for field reporting by local stations. But by the time of the Vietnam War, things had changed. It is forever known as the Television War, and one Iowa television station was there, with a correspondent on the scene.
Over the centuries, this city, this country, have seen many wars. It's the site of the Vietnam peace talks.
And Vietnam, to be able to have people back here gather in front of a television set and see guns firing and incoming artillery and people being carried on stretchers, that brought the war home. And with me there, talking in person to the man from El Cater or from Waterloo, and to say, what is your job? What's your day like? What's it like to be in this steaming jungle? And how, when you go, I experienced, and so I can ask you, what's it like to be able to stand under this barrel of water in this camp after having been out in the jungle all day long on a search and destroy mission and pull the chain and feel that nice hot water come down over your naked body? What's it like? That gave people a picture that couldn't even be painted in a letter.
Dean Borg, himself an Air Force veteran, was sent to Vietnam by WMT-TV news director Grant Price to report on the work done by Max Sowerby of El Cater. Sowerby was the extension director in Clayton County, who left Iowa to lead food production efforts in Vietnam as part of a U.S. governmental agricultural development program.
The pacification program sought to win over, if you will, South Vietnamese peasants from being influenced by the Viet Cong. The way that they did this was to teach them improved farming methods, how to raise improved pork and crops, rice, and other crops that would grow there. And so I did a half-hour report, which I brought back, on Max Sowerby and the pacification program. It was good because Max was well known throughout eastern Iowa, particularly up in the northeast Iowa area.
But Borg's overseas assignment in 1967 was broader than producing that half-hour program on Sowerby's efforts. He toured remote areas of the South Vietnamese jungle, seeking Iowans who were in service. Colleagues from CBS in Saigon would assist in shipping his unprocessed film first to Hong Kong, then to San Francisco, and finally it would arrive at Broadcast Park in Cedar Rapids. Borg feels the then new medium of television helped affect public perception of the fighting in Vietnam.
The importance of a local station covering the war and the Iowans involved in it, I think brought, as television news was doing at that time, through the CBS correspondents, our network, who were in South Vietnam, for the first time bringing the actual blood and sweat and agony, if you will, of the war to viewers. They had never seen that before, and that was part of the downfall, of course, of continuing that war, because Americans got sick of it, what they were seeing.
Borg later traveled with the Iowans' Care mission to Paris as peace talks were underway in that city. Now, 45 years later, one experience still is foremost in Dean Borg's memory.
As a correspondent, I was not embedded. We didn't have embedded. You got credentialed by the Department of Defense, and then when you arrived in Saigon, went to the office there, the DOD office, and picked up those credentials. And that, and a hard hat and uniform and things like that, and I'm talking about the helmet. And from there on, you were on your own. You could go out to Tan Son Nhut Airport, catch a flight to anywhere you wanted to, if you could get on board, a helicopter. I caught a flight up to Kuchi, right out in the middle of the jungle, because I wanted to go out on a search and destroy mission. I thought that would be exciting. As I think about it, it was a bad decision, and a greater power intervened, and I developed a severe case of dysentery overnight. And I was all set to go out with 15 Army people on what was called a search and destroy mission. To make a long story short, I was unable to go that day because of dysentery. Only 3 people came back from that search and destroy mission. That's the image that sticks in my mind. And many times I have thought, I was on my own. Grant Price, back in Iowa, he knew he had somebody in South Vietnam, but he didn't know what kind of decisions that person was making about his own personal safety. And I'm just lucky to be here. Iowa Radio was not left behind, as Jack Shelley's successor as WHO News Director, Bob Wilbanks, reported from Vietnam, as did Herb Plambeck, who landed near Saigon in October of 1967, just a few months before his 60th birthday. During his assignment, Plambeck interviewed 125 Iowa and Midwestern GIs, many for a special Christmas program that year.
Christmas time is a time to be with a family or to be thinking about loved ones who may be far away. It's our hope that this program will help to make Christmas merrier and pleasanter for many families in the WHO area. A brief word of explanation first. The Christmas messages were all recorded under war conditions by way of a small transistor recorder out in the field. The tapes then had to be transferred twice to higher speeds. Voice quality will not be as good as we'd like, but the voices you will hear are the voices of our men over there themselves. We think that's better than if we merely repeated their greetings. First, let's hear a fine-looking GI stationed near Long Bien, north of Saigon, Specialist Gary Askland of Fort Dodge, whose parents are Mr. and Mrs. Elmer Askland.
I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, but especially my parents, relatives, and my girl back home. All I can say is the winter is there, but next year will be. Christmas won't be the same over here, but I guess someone has to be over here.
Changes in technology allowed Herb Plambeck to bring the sounds of the battlefield back to his audience in Iowa.
We may be interrupted by a little more fun. We were interrupted, but that's quite all right because we're here with the artillery unit, some 200 yards away from where the North Vietnamese Army apparently is still controlling some territory. How are you?
Just fine, sir.
Do you think about your folks any?
Yes, sir, quite often.
Say, you don't have to say sir to me because my rank is considerably below yours. Mystic, Iowa is an area that is rather a good listening territory for us. Have you heard our programs?
Very often, Mr. Plambeck.
Have you? Yes. The noon show?
Yes.
I see. I think there'll be... There was more firing. Say, this noise, it isn't unbearable, but it kind of, bothers me a little bit. How about you guys?
Well, we get used to it pretty quick over here. At night, it doesn't bother us at all. Sleep right through it.
You sleep right through this. I don't think I would very well.